Shabbat Shalom and welcome to Hampstead Garden Suburb Synagogue's sermon for Parshat Bo. Earlier this week, the Times reported that our Prime Minister takes a daily afternoon power nap. Now, Number 10 immediately denied the reports. I'm here today to explain the confusion. It all has to do with Brexit. You see, initially we thought we could negotiate a siesta as part of our deal with the EU. Unfortunately, we had to let that one go. And so, no, the official word from Downing Street is that Brits do not take afternoon snoozes. But what, if any, are the benefits of the power nap? Following the 10th plague of the death of the firstborn, we're given a curious mitzvah at the end of this week's parsha. Every firstborn child and kosher animal must be dedicated to God. That part makes sense. Here's the strange part of the mitzvah though. And every firstborn donkey must be redeemed and exchanged for a sheep, because it too, the donkey, is also special. Why? To what does the donkey owe this distinction? I want to give you a number of answers. The first one is provided by Rashi in 11th century France. He says that when we left Egypt, every single Israelite left with so many 90 donkeys laden with gold and silver, and to acknowledge and thank them for being part of the miracle of the Exodus, we now have to redeem them and dedicate them to spirituality. The second answer is given by Rabbi Yosef Bechor Shar, 12th century France. He says that the donkeys are the reminder that God smote, as the verse says, from man to beast during the plague. Now, if we would only dedicate the kosher animals, we wouldn't recall the moment of God's providence that affected all animals. The fact that we bring a donkey reminds us that all animals were part of that moment of God's providence. Rav Shamshon Raphael Hirsch, 19th century Germany, says that if we look at the three categories of dedication, they represent our three realms of dedication to God. We dedicate the firstborn child, we dedicate the firstborn kosher animal, and we dedicate the firstborn donkey, representing ourselves, our food, our consumption, and our possessions. All of these realms need to be dedicated to God. Let me offer for you a further idea. If we look at the word for donkey, we see something amazing. The verse says, "V'ha'avarta kol peter rechem laHashem," and you shall pass over the first issue of every womb to God, right, our firstborn children, v'chol peter chamor tifter v'seh, and all the first of the donkeys should be redeemed with a sheep. Look at these two words, peter rechem or peter chamor, the first issue of the womb and the first issue of the donkey. These two words are actually anagrams. Rechem, chamor. What is the connection between these two words? Rechem represents divine giving. It comes from the same word as rachum, mercy. We know that God is called merciful because even though we don't deserve his bounty all the time, he showers us with his blessing. That's why the womb is called the rechem. It's the life-giving force. Now let's contrast that with the chet mem resh, chamor or donkey, which also means this worldliness. Already we were told that we had to build the pyramids, the chomer ovilvenim, with mud and clay, with clay and bricks. And when Moses is placed into a basket on the Nile, his mother covers the basket b'chemar, with tar. Chamor represents the earthliness, this worldliness, in contrast with the rechem, the rachum, that represents spirituality. You see, the world looks at these two ideas, heaven and earth, as dichotomous. There's a distinction. Ne'er the twain shall meet. It's either heaven or earth. Along comes Judaism and teaches that human beings have the ability, the divine gift, to connect, to fuse heaven and earth. That really, if we can work it out, if we can recognize that they're intertwined, that they're really from the same source, that the rechem and the chamor are really two ideas just taken from different angles, different perspectives. We human beings, listen to this one, consist, our sages tell us, of Ramach Eivarim, 248 Reish Mem Chet body parts. We are the connection between the Chomer and the Rachum. We are the ones to be able to, because we consist of both aspects, earth and heaven, body and soul. In fact, how do we do that? By the performance of mitzvot. There are 248 negative commandments and 365 positive commandments. When we think about the negative commandments, what we need to abstain from in this world, and then the positive commandments, 365 of course, corresponds to the days in the solar calendar that's connecting heaven and earth, the sun and the earth, the heavens and the earthly realms. That's our job, that's our mission. When we perform mitzvot, we connect the chamar with the rachem. Let's talk about sleep. Why is sleep so refreshing? Our sages tell us that when you go to sleep, 1/60th of your soul returns to heaven. And so the reason we feel refreshed after we go to sleep is not just because we are physically refreshed, but we are spiritually reinvigorated. We have now been given a new dose of spirituality with which to infuse this world and invigorate this world, to be able to fulfill our mission of uniting heaven and earth. That's the special uniqueness of sleep according to Judaism. It can happen any moment, but that moment gives us a new and fresh perspective on our mission upon this earth. I want to shift gears for a moment and talk about another important benefit of sleep. My colleague and friend, Rabbi John Gross, was once sitting at the table of Rabbi Machlis in Jerusalem. Rabbi Machlis is known to have many of the yeshiva and seminary students over for Shabbat, and one yeshiva student was bemoaning the fact that he has to go to sleep every night. He says, imagine if I had 24 hours a day to be able to devote to Torah learning, how much more I could achieve. Why do we need to sleep? And Rabbi Machlis said to him something very profound. He says, have you ever had a bad day and you went to sleep at the end of the day and the next morning you woke up and you felt so much better? It was a new day. Sleep is the greatest blessing, the ability to be able to distinguish between yesterday and today. Sleep is the gift of pausing, of stopping, of starting a different chapter, of moving away from where I was at. This week, this Shabbat, is Mental Health Awareness Shabbat. I want to quote for you an idea that Rabbi Daniel Epstein, my friend and colleague from Southgate, Cockfosters and North Southgate Synagogue, wrote in last week's Jewish Chronicle. He says that sometimes we struggle in life, especially those dealing with mental health issues, and all we see are two ways. Either we can take this choice or that choice. And it may be that one choice we can't deal with, it's just too much, it's overbearing, it's overwhelming. And the other choice is simply to end it all. He says, no, there's a third choice. The third choice is that we pause. Just like that moment of sleep, when we don't necessarily have to deal with issue right now, sometimes we can just pause and not make the decision right now. It's not a yes or no. It's a stop and think and reconsider the issue at a later date. Sleep represents our ability and obligation to take a step back and reflect, and that can be helpful to those suffering. I want to take a moment to wish much strength to those who are dealing with struggles of mental health anguish, and to their families who are supporting them through whatever particular crisis you are dealing with. Our thoughts and hearts and prayers are with you through every moment of your lives. But also this moment of pause is important to each and every one of us in our daily stresses of life. The idea of pausing means not necessarily to respond to my spouse immediately if there is a state of conflict. Responding might exacerbate the situation. Pausing means taking a step back. Maybe I don't have to respond to an email immediately, an email that's upset me. And if I were to respond immediately, who knows what the consequences would be. Instead, I put it aside and maybe give myself 24 hours to breathe and think, and then see how I respond the next day. At the moment, I might feel that I have no choice but to say something. I must respond. But we do have a choice. We have the choice to give it a pause, to sleep on it. And then we can see if we still feel that we have no other choice. Chances are you'll find a way to respond that will be healing and helpful to the relationship rather than harmful and exacerbating. May we all be blessed with the strength to pause when needed, sleep on our issues, and to be able to fulfill our mission here, connecting heaven and earth. And may we be blessed with the divine attributes of mercy and compassion to take care and be there for those who are struggling with finding the pause button. May the Almighty shine his countenance and grant healing to all. Shabbat Shalom.